What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what happened today and how SoFi is getting primed and ready for a breakout, but not yet. And I'm going to break it down on what I kind of mean by that. So I'm going to go over all that, but first make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. And also on a side note, I am back to my regular scheduled broadcasting. So I'm going to be doing daily SoFi videos once again. I appreciate the patience. I went on a 1-week vacation in case you guys didn't see my last video. I went to England. But interestingly enough, I kept very close tabs on SoFi. It was very exciting to see it run up as much as it did, and then equally as disappointing to see it just go to these levels. So kind of had mixed emotions on all of that, but at the same time, there was a lot of sense of manipulation. So obviously, you know, on my channel, I like to go over several things, one of which is options that kind of shows a good sentiment and plus is a good indicator of what might be potentially coming, as well shorts, not necessarily because it's a short squeeze play, but it's a good benchmark because those are the individuals that are either suppressing any stock or just betting that it's going to go down. So it's good to analyze a lot of different data points. So once again, that's kind of what I do on this channel, but shorts. So ever since SoFi's phenomenal earnings, and also on a side note, I might actually do a SoFi Q4 summary, but I feel like it's kind of a little bit too late for that, but I still might do it because I absolutely loved their earnings. I loved their future guidance as well, what they gave for like what's coming even after 2024. And I feel like, how can analysts be bearish on that? So once again, that was something that did influence the stock price as well, is amazing earnings, but analysts. And time again, bad ratings get the priority with SoFi. I don't know why, just that's always been the case. So David crawled out of his hole, so David from 𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗛, and he gave a sell rating, $3 target. I believe that's what he gave last time, so just reiterated that. Then there was KBW, $650 price target, a sell rating. Morgan Stanley did downgrade, so Jeffrey, who does have a 56% success rating, gave a $650 price target. And then most recently, 4 days ago, you have Giuliano, Compass Point, $4 price target. So analysts, there was a lot of optimism, but of course the four that I mentioned are what everyone talks about, the negative aspects. So you get that, and plus it's just very bad timing about the jobs report, and then Powell, just that's how everything led to where SoFi is right now. And of course today, there's a lot of different concerns, especially coming out from China as well, but SoFi did go down 3.81% today, 41.7 million shares were traded, 57.6 is the average. No actual news from SoFi itself, no SEC filings, so it has been rather quiet, but then again, that's kind of anticipated, especially post earnings, in my own opinion. But especially during that week that I did take off, I was really watching shorts, and it's very sickening. So especially with the home run earnings and SoFi to get just completely have so much hope. So a lot of people buy in, and then shorts during that whole time increase, as weird as that sounds. So today they did increase 2.12 million shares, 13.88% of the free float is being shorted. So in comparison to a lot of other fintechs and banks, both, because sometimes people just say SoFi is a bank, sometimes they're not, whatever else. In both comparisons, SoFi does have a fairly high short interest. And looking right here, 126.55 million shares are being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 0.96%. And you do see some signs of manipulation as usual. So cost to borrow minimum is negative 0.2. And so that does mean that there is a broker out there. It doesn't say who, but there is a broker out there that physically does pay people to short SoFi. As weird and backwards as that is, but at the same time, like I said at the very beginning, you can tell that a lot of the data points, more so the technicals, are looking primed and ready for a breakout. And you can tell that there are some external forces not really wanting it to. And it is correlated with shorts. I don't know if somehow there's something bigger afoot, maybe working alongside David or 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗛 or someone else, because if you think about it, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀All small fish. Morgan Stanley, that did give a fairly bad rating, 650. Morgan Stanley isn't the biggest bank, but of course they do have some pull in the market, right? But in the end, it just does not make sense for someone or some entity to really take SoFi to the next level to try to manipulate it down and suppress it. I don't know, again, maybe this is their bigger plan to bring SoFi to a cheap point to potentially take it over, because SoFi has been really getting a lot of growth, and coming from a multiple standpoint, like it is a very good value play. Some people might argue with me on that, and that's fair, but I do feel that SoFi is a pretty good value play, and this is why you do see a lot of big money getting in. So these are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So 1.19 million, 7.07, like a lot of big money has been getting in over this last week as a result of their earnings. So clearly, big money is watching SoFi, but I don't know if they're maybe waiting for some okay from the feds just to say or signal that there is going to be a confirmed maybe rate cut in May, because once that is confirmed, then you are going to see a very nice rally with a lot of these fintechs and a lot of these discounted stocks, because value plays are just going to run. But at the same time, like I've mentioned, just the technicals have not really been in SoFi's favor, but as a result of their earnings, that kind of did skew things. So going back over here, you can tell on the Elliott wave, so it does have a pivot point right now of $6.71, which right now SoFi is above that. So as long as SoFi is above that pivot point, then it is anticipated to go anywhere between $10.01 and $10.70. And I feel like that's kind of realistic, especially given the earnings. That's where it should be, not at $6 or $7.61. I actually did buy a little bit more today, and I'm probably humbling myself a little bit. I probably did back up the bus a little bit more than I probably should have, but I do believe that based on their recent earnings, like this should not be a $7 stock. This should be a $10, $11, maybe even pushing it a $12 stock, given the circumstances in the market right now. But then again, as I said, I could be very much wrong about this, and SoFi as a whole. But I do really feel that SoFi is onto something very big, and it is going to be a very big game changer in the whole finance market, or sector, I guess. But looking at options, so $6.22 million in calls being purchased versus $2.63 million in puts. Sentiment wise, 49% of all the options being done today were optimistic and bullish. So that's generally a fairly good thing. And like I said at the very beginning, so the technicals are looking very good and primed for a breakout. And so before I go over the next part, I just want to go over and kind of link it all together with technicals. So with it at $7.58, that's what it closed at. It is currently trading between this S1 and the pivot. So in comparison to a lot of other growth stocks, SoFi is doing okay. Of course, it's gone hit. Some other fintechs are trading between this R1 and the R2. So it's not necessarily the best, but it did hold, and I think that's kind of a good takeaway. $7.51 is that S1. That's going to be a very strong support. Bounced off of that today. That's, again, a good sign. $8.26 is that next pivot, so that's going to be the resistance point. Very wide gap, so you do have to anticipate that there's going to be a hell of a lot of volatility with SoFi. But the bigger entities do not want it to break out yet. They don't want it to be above $8. So it is just going to be simply trading between this and $8. So within this range right here, until either the bigger entities are ready for it to go up, or maybe something positive on a larger scale does occur. Because as I've brought up in the past, if you look at the open interest on SoFi, you can tell where big money wants to take it. So you do see February the 2nd, those options already did expire. And where SoFi did land, as you can kind of tell, it was, I believe, within this range or wherever it did land, I believe. But you do see a huge amount of open interest call options. $9, $59,000, $35,000, $47,000 at the $10 strike. And as I've signaled in the past, market makers do not want to cover that. They don't want to go out onto the open market, which will cause a nice bump up in the stock price. They'd rather just try to bring it down and suppress it. So as you can tell, they wanted it below $8, similar to this week. So February the 9th right here, that's this upcoming Friday, you see clearly there's 15,000, 12,000, 21,000, 11, and $9.17. So a fairly good amount, nowhere in comparison to last week, but still there is a lot of call options above that $8 mark. So market makers, once again, this week will not want it to go over $8 because they don't want to cover those on the open market. Because typically what does happen, by whether it be on Friday or the Monday, market makers will have to go, because they don't have open inventory of all of these stocks, including SoFi. Typically a lot of volatile stocks, they wait until the last minute to cover any potential exercising of options. Also, on a side note, if you guys don't know options, highly suggest in researching them because they can be very beneficial. But like I said, when it comes to market makers, they wait until the last minute or potentially until they expire in the money to exercise and cover them on the open market. So meaning on Monday. Ultimately, market makers don't want it to be above $8. So if I was to make a potential guess, it would be around February the 23rd. This is where you might see a bump up in the stock price. So potentially 2 weeks. So as bad as that sounds, it looks like SoFi might be trading sideways, maybe for, again, the next couple of weeks until the bigger entities, maybe is correlated with shorts or analysts. I have no idea. There might be something bigger, but that is where clearly the options, which is a good sentiment, it does indicate that there is going to be more of an opening, if that makes sense. Which, when it comes down to it, I could be overthinking a lot of this. It has been accurate in the past, but you never know, right? Maybe market makers might change their tune, maybe this week or the following week, because you do see some gaps at the 850 and that the 950 strikes as well. So that might be a good opportunity potentially for it to break out at that stage. Just there's no real data points coming this week that could give the broader market a nice rally. There's a lot of companies unveiling their earnings, but aside from that though, it is just going to be a very much technical driven week. And SoFi's technicals are looking primed and ready for a breakout, just you need the bigger entities clearly on the same page. So I did recently buy today a little bit more than I probably should have, but I do believe in SoFi, and like I've said in the past, like SoFi is going to be a huge stock, and given the fact that it is at $7 right now, is just so undervalued. It's crazy. So I believe in SoFi bigger picture. I could be wrong. So again, to summarize, the data points are looking very strong. Consolidation on the technicals are looking and indicating a breakout was coming, but with SoFi's manipulation that does happen, it's just once it gets the rubber stamp from the bigger entities that it's going to allow SoFi to break out. Like, we're just going to be stuck in limbo. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Hopefully this one was a little bit more of a longer rant. My apologies if that is the case. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with all that said, I appreciate all of you watching.